And now joining us to discuss the first 2 days of the test match between the Proteas and New Zealand is sports journalist Stephen Pettit. Stephen, a very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start right there from what Neil Brand is talking about, saying that, well, the game is not all lost. There's still an opportunity to come back in it. Is there still that opportunity for the Proteas to get something out of this test?
Well, I think Test cricket is an interesting format for that exact reason. So, I mean, right now, completely out of the game, 431 runs behind, New Zealand posting a mammoth total in the first innings. But it's Test cricket for a reason, I think it's about players standing up. And I think, it's about trying to sort of last the longest that you can. Another 3 days of cricket, plenty of cricket ahead of us. You've got two batsmen who have played Test cricket before and have been picked when they've sort of been able to pick anyone before. So, these are two batsmen who are Test quality, and if both of them sort of stand up tomorrow, the main thing is, I think, at the moment, sort of avoiding that follow-on, and you get yourself sort of back into the game. It's unlikely, but, this is what Test cricket's about. It's about those unlikely stories. It's about that bit of fight. So I don't think we're completely out of it yet. I don't think a win, for example, is probably on the cards. But if we could take this to another day or two, then maybe a draw could be, a very unlikely draw, could potentially be an option.
Now, as you've just touched on some of the few points, now there's been a lot of question marks about this particular Protea squad for obvious reasons. How would you say they have, fared so far?
Well, I think we probably fared about as well as we kind of sort of thought they might. At the end of the day, we're very aware that this is not anything near a first-string side, and it's always going to be tough for these players. When you've got a captain, who's making his debut, captaining the side, a lot of players in the squad who've never played Test cricket, against, one of the most consistent cricketing sides of the last decade. We're talking about a side that's won the World Test Championship. They are incredibly settled, playing at home. There was always going to be very dominant. I think there have been some positive signs, but I think the problem is, it's an environment now where players who are sort of either in and out of the team or never been in the team are learning very quickly just how big a test setup or how Test cricket works. And it's difficult because you kind of look around for people to sort of stand up, and everybody's in a similar situation where there's nobody that's really been here for years and years and currently playing in the Test side, which, you can really rely on. So it's a difficult situation, but I think it's one we probably sort of assumed would happen. But I think there have been some positives.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at that, the other thing is that it's only one way to learn. These boys are thrown into the deep end, and this is the kind of games that you have to prepare for, that you have to go through. So either way, they have to adapt as quick as possible.
Yeah, I was actually very excited for the series because I thought, it's an opportunity to make a name for yourself. You've been written off. The world, throws and sort of foreign media throwing sort of accusations that we're disrespecting Test cricket, for example. You've got the opportunity to put your hand up and say, well, no, actually, I am good enough to play at this level. I mean, Neil Brand, who some would consider as a part-time bowler, he's on the honours board now at the stadium with a 5-wicket haul. So go and make a name for yourself. I think something like Tepo Mareki didn't look out of place, and I think there are certain players who have looked that really, really solid and looked like Test players. And this is the opportunity, go and give the selectors something to think about, That's what you can do in the series.
Well, after quite a decent start with the ball, New Zealand quickly wrestled back the momentum through Ravindra and Williams. How damaging could that partnership prove to be?
Yeah, it's partnership that took the game away from us, really. I think, we're sitting there 39 for 2, bowlers bowling with a little bit of confidence, and then we saw a masterclass from one of the best batsmen, the Test game has seen, in the likes of Kane Williamson, and they got to experience somebody who's going to be very, very special. Ravindra has had a phenomenal last sort of 12, 18 months, and we saw the best of him. And unfortunately, yeah, he's got the complete different situation to what all the Proteas players have. He's coming into a settled side where everyone around him has played Test cricket, and he's in an environment which is basically set up for him to succeed, whilst all the Proteas players are playing in an environment where they've been set up to fail. And we're sort of seeing that difference. But again, it's about a learning experience. And a lot of these players, I look at this team, and out of the 11, I'd look at this 3-4 players who I think will play many more tests after this series. And there's no such thing as, a bad test from a learning experience. Every lesson, every innings, every session will be something that you'll learn that hopefully will make them better cricketers.
Now, we touched on Neil Brand on debut and his performance with the ball, getting 6 wickets. I mean, is that enough to give the Proteas just a little bit of hope?
Well, I think it's about confidence. And I think, it's a two-match series at the end of the day. So, you can look back and say, right now, this test is not looking particularly good, but what can you get out of this test? And if that's confidence, if that's understanding, okay, well, this is what the step up is, this is kind of the adjustments I need to make, then that's what you need to take out of it. And for me, this first test is always going to be a massive learning curve for these players. But I mean, somewhere like Eddie Moore, maybe making 23, which is not a significant knock, but looked really comfortable out there. Sabaya Hamza back in the setup looked really comfortable. David Beddingham's currently looking very comfortable. Hopefully he goes on to score some more runs tomorrow. And I think, this team will go into the next test in a week's time. And these 3, 4, hopefully 5 days of test cricket will be an incredible learning experience for them. So I think every opportunity they have to go out there and make mistakes to improve it will be valuable. And who knows, last time we went to New Zealand, we took our full string size. We got hammered in the first test and we bounced back and put in a really good performance and a really dominant win in the second. So cricket's a funny game. On your day, anyone can step up. There's no doubt that you've got the quality there for players to do something. It's a matter of the individual putting their hand up and deciding, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to take this team forward.
Now, just on that, I mean, do you think with that much changed lineup, do we have those batters that are able to, bring us back into the game, that are able to raise their hands and say, well, let's keep this going and see how far we can drag out this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think David Beddingham right now is looking really positive. He put himself out of the SA20 and said he wants to focus on Test cricket. He wanted to go to New Zealand. He sacrificed that potential paycheck to say, no, I want to be a Test cricketer. He made a decision to commit to playing for South Africa, for example. He was on the England radar for a while, and he wants to be a Test batsman. So this is now a situation where he himself must be thinking, well, I'm effectively, the premier batsman in this team. Keegan Peterson scored a Test 100. He's someone who's had a really good start to his Test career and it's kind of tailed off. So he's got the ability. Sabaya Hamza coming back after a year sort of ban, he's now playing some of the best cricket he's ever played. So I look at them and I think there's none of these players who I think have never not been on the Test radar. So they've all got the ability. It's about that one person who can on the day show why he can play at this level and he can deserve to continue playing at this level long beyond the series. All
right, Stephen, thank you very much for coming through to speak to us. I truly appreciate your time and your insight. Stephen Petit, the sports journalist. And, well, I couldn't help but say this, Stephen Proteas, from Stephen Petit, which means small, to Stephen Proteas.